Hey TNT Strong, Taryn, Weston here. We finally, after months, have received our Thor Hammers. These things are super cool. I have a 35-pound one. Weston's got a 55-pound one, of course. We've had at least probably a month or so to actually get to mess around with them, and so we wanted to put a little video together and give you some pros and cons about them, maybe compare them to kind of your normal kettlebell equipment or maybe even just dumbbell equipment that you might have, why you should get these or why you shouldn't, and also some fun movements that we found that we have liked with it and other movements that maybe have been a little difficult to perform due to the shape and the weight distribution or so of the Thor Hammer. So we'll go through, maybe talk about some of our movements that we like and dislike, and then we'll head into some pros and cons and dig a little bit deeper into what we like and don't like about them.
Definitely my favorite movement with this thing is a ground to overhead single arm type snatch. I think that I like this movement just because, you know, this is a Thor's hammer. If you've seen any of the Marvel movies, seen any of the Norse mythology drawings and depictions, this makes me feel like a superhero slash Norse god. I mean, this is the movement of these hammers. These things are awesome to do. This is probably what I use this thing for 90% of the time. The other movement I really like is offset squats with this. You can just load this thing up on your shoulder. Great functional movement, dropping down, working those legs, but then the offset weight as opposed to like a goblet squat or a traditional barbell back squat. This is gonna make you engage that core a little bit and really add a little extra to just a normal squat. Things I don't like using these for, basically failed doing these bicep curls. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in the cons, but just the way these things are built, their shape, how the weight distribution is set up, you can come nowhere close to doing the weight in a bicep curl that you could do with a dumbbell. And then Turkish get-ups, one of my favorite movements. I did a video on it a couple weeks ago. There's just no way, like, you're not doing a Turkish get-up with this thing unless you're going way down in weight, which, you know, where's the fun in that? So definitely some awesome movements and some things that you're just never going to use these Thor's hammers for.
What's your weight in Turkish get-up on a kettlebell or dumbbell?
I can do, if I'm going real slow and my shoulders are feeling nice and warm, I can hit 70 pounds. I might be able to do the 35s a few times, but it's definitely sketchy feeling. So I don't do them. So Taryn, what about you?
The exercises that I like and have found myself doing a lot with the Thor hammer and my 35 that I do have is, the first one is cleans. So like Weston, it's kind of that fun, you grab it, and like the first movement that most people do when they see a Thor hammer and grab it is like Weston overhead. Mine is kind of just to the clean, just to the shoulder. I don't have to end up worrying about trying to stabilize it overhead, so that's why I like the cleans a little more. I can rip it from the ground up to my shoulders quickly and then right back down. I only usually end up doing one at a time. Two is a little sketchy. I think sometimes to be able to try to control both, so I like to just do a single arm kettlebell swing, so I'm able to just focus and control one at a time. I feel cool when I can take this hammer and take it from the ground to shoulder. So second one, single arm kettlebell swings, and yes, just single arm. Again, when it comes to single arm, it's tons of fun. It works, taxes your grip like crazy, more than probably what just a actual kettlebell would do. Dislikes, trying to attempt a double arm kettlebell swing, so having both hands on this handle of the Thor hammer just doesn't work. There's no point in it. It's an extra extension into the arm and it just feels weird. I feel like my body twists and twerks a little too weird. Presses, when it comes to bicep curls, like Weston said, presses are the same thing. The distribution of the weight, it's too hard to be able to attempt to do any kind of chest press if you're laying on the ground, or any kind of shoulder press and standing up and pressing it overhead. So even if you bring the hand all the way close to the head of the Thor hammer, still can't distribute the weight enough for it to be able to move efficiently and properly through the movement. So.
And we do have two 35 pounds. We bought one 55 to kind of mess around with the heavy single arm stuff, and we have two 35s. We thought that maybe having a pair of them, you might be able to do kind of a traditional bench press or a you know, any type of dual movement that you might do with two kettlebells or two dumbbells. And these are really single arm movements. You're doing one at a time. You don't need, I don't think you need pairs of these really for anything.
We did it to see if
just to test it out. So let's go over the pros and the cons of these. We kind of touched on a little bit, hinted on a little bit of them, but definitely the first pro, or one of the reasons that I really like this, this thing's awesome. Like, you take this into the gym, you're gonna get eyes on you. People are gonna come up and ask you what it is. People want to try it out. It's a unique piece of metal, basically, that most people haven't seen. So that's definitely one of the cool things about this.
Next thing, challenge. Like, this is a challenge. You compare this to doing a movement like, off of a kettlebell or a dumbbell, and then you move to this, and it can be the exact same weight, and the Thor hammer 90% of the time will be heavier and will be harder. It's just comes down to, again, the shape of it, the weight distribution of it, and everything. It's just going to be a harder and more challenging piece of equipment in a movement that you can perform easily on maybe a kettlebell or a dumbbell.
And I think one of the other pros is, and really some of the reason that Taryn ended up buying this for me, is if you know someone, or you personally have everything, you have a full set of kettlebells, you have barbells, you have bumper plates, you have dumbbells, whatever, the whole gym in your garage, they probably don't have this, or you probably don't have this. So it's something different, something unique, and it could make a great present. And then especially extra for me, I'm a huge fan of Scandinavian Norse mythology, or any Norse mythology, and Thor as the lore with the god, as well as he's a pretty cool superhero. So this tied in is a perfect gift for me. So let's get into the cons, the flip side of this coin. These definitely don't replace a kettlebell. So if you do a ton of kettlebell work and you think that this is going to be, the next thing for you, or you're looking for, say, a 55 or 70 pound kettlebell, and you think you can just get one of these, it's not. This is just a different thing entirely, and I would say not as good as a kettlebell. We'll keep talking about this, but this does not replace a kettlebell. Don't buy one of these if you have a hole in your progressions up or weights up in kettlebells and think that this is going to fill that spot. It's just not going to.
If you're starting out your fitness journey, so say you have no equipment, nothing, and you're not even familiar on how to do movements properly, this is not for you either. Again, it's fun, it's definitely unique, but if you're starting out, I highly recommend buying like a set of like some lighter or heavier dumbbells, or maybe kettlebells, something that you can actually use on most movements.
And kind of jumping on that as well, these aren't cheap. I mean, I know, especially right now during COVID, nothing is really that cheap. No gym equipment is cheap. But if you are just starting out, you're building your own gym, you have a limited budget, you have limited space, these aren't your go-to. So if you're watching this video and trying to decide whether you have $100 to spend on your home gym for COVID to stay in shape, move on. And I feel kind of bad saying that, because I think these are really cool, but if you are limited in space or budget, buy a kettlebell.
The 35 has got a little bit more of a matted texture and paint to it. We pulled out the 55 when we got it, and it's a lot more glossy. So it's definitely more, it's heavier, so it's going to be harder to hold on to anyways already. But on top of that, with it being heavier and it being a glossier texture, one thing we will make adjustments to is add some kind of like tennis rack grip or something onto, for sure, the 55. If that works really, really well, then we'll probably add it to the 35 as well.
The two kind of biggest negatives that we've been dancing around with these that should either persuade you to avoid them, or you're willing to step up for the challenge and get them, is the angle of this handle on the weight. Your wrist has to be pointed in a way that isn't very stable, isn't allowed for very much strength, and honestly sometimes can be a little bit painful, or at least uncomfortable at a minimum. So this is why, like Taryn was talking about, the single arm kettlebell swings versus the double arm kettlebell swings, things like this, how the handle comes out from the center of mass compared to a kettlebell just makes you rotate your wrist in a weird direction that really you shouldn't be in this position. It's a position that is going to increase your chance of injury and limit you in terms of strength and power and explosiveness, because your wrist is at such an awkward angle.
Last one we have is the angle, or not the angle, the weight distribution, which I've thrown those words around already, especially when we were talking about the movements that we like and we dislike. Obviously, if you look at this thing, this is where most of the mass and weight is at, is in the head of the hammer. With it, it ends up when we're trying to attempt to do any kind of like bicep curls or presses, where we place our hand kind of even at the base of the head of the Thor hammer. All the weights in one sits on one side of the hand, and the other side, there's nothing to be able to help even that weight out at all in that area.
So I think our overall rating or recommendation for this is, and I know we've kind of said this a few times, but if you're a beginner, limited budget, limited space, this isn't for you. If you own a gym, have a whole gym in your garage, want to find a gift for someone who has everything fitness related or a new challenge, these can definitely be a cool option. But they're not going to replace a kettlebell. They're not going to replace a dumbbell. And honestly, we were really excited for these, and there's been times I've noticed they're collecting a little bit of dust. We walk out the door, we grab kettlebells. These are awesome centerpieces. I might end up putting this on my coffee table or fireplace mantle. Like, it looks so cool, and it's built so well. Like, you could run this thing over with a truck, I'm pretty sure, and it's not going anywhere. It's a solid piece of equipment, well made. It's just obviously not designed to be a well balanced and handled piece of exercise equipment. It's a novelty item at the end of the day that is heavy and you can mess around with, but super high on the awesome scale, pretty low on the functional fitness scale, things that you're actually going to pick up and use all the time. Thanks for watching. Make sure and leave us a comment or a thumbs up if you found this information valuable. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. It really helps us get the videos out and grow this channel. Thanks. See you next time.